The hustle bros are getting political. Here in the UK, over the past few weeks, there's been a big debate about wealth taxes, and in particular, the question of, does work pay or not anymore? Some of this started under a fortnight ago, apparently, when Gary Stevenson, who is a inequality campaigner, sort of ex-city boy turned person who is worried about inequality and sort of economics educator, appeared on the Diary of a CEO, which is Stephen Bartlett's podcast. If you have ever listened to this, you are more used to him having on someone with spurious takes about healthcare, health and wellness. However, he decided to do a new format in which Stephen Bartlett kind of is quiet and allows a debate to happen in front of him. So Gary's been making videos for quite a while on his YouTube channel. He also has a book that came out a little while ago now, but has recently come out in paperback, called The Trading Game, which is a sort of a autobiography, but also has some insights into how the City of London works and into economics and inequality and stuff. And he's been doing that for a little while, trucking along, and yet over the past few months has kind of got a decent amount of traction. And his key thing is that, inequality is bad, and particularly the inequality is bad for kind of multiple reasons. It's not just the fact that someone has a super yacht, someone else can't eat. We are getting to the point now where there are, quite significant problems in which some people basically live in a different world to other people, and that is corrosive for a society. And also, the way in which the world works at the moment means that hard work isn't really rewarded, right? If you work harder, quite often that doesn't mean more reward. It might not even mean more reward for your boss, because the office that you work from, the rent is so high that so much of that money goes to them. We've sort of built this odd system, this kind of monopolistic system in which being a company that is some sort of rentier, some sort of monopolist that kind of controls just the right bit of an industry, like that is the best way to make money now, rather than being the company that does the most important thing in an industry or does a thing the best. And so on this kind of upward viral trajectory, Gary participated in this debate on the Diary of a CEO, and I think this kind of brought him to a slightly newer audience, maybe. I or you, or like there is a certain audience who might instinctively want to click on a video called "Why is Inequality Ignored?" or "Everything You've Missed on the Economy," or and yet I think Gary sort of got a very charismatic personality where he probably appeals to the kind of audience that the Diary of a CEO has, even if that audience might not otherwise seek out the things he's saying, if that makes sense. And this is set aside a lot of campaigning that Gary and others have been doing around wealth taxes in the UK more broadly. But I think the way in which this brought the conversation around inequality and taxing those who have managed to take an increasingly large chunk of the national wealth, global wealth, for themselves, the way in which this appearance on this podcast, which, it got lots of views, got 3 million views, apparently, in 11 days, which is wild, but also I think it brought that conversation into collision with a new audience. And what that audience is, I think, is telling in the fact that the person that Gary is kind of debating here, a guy called Daniel Priestley, who I had not heard of before. And looking at the stuff that he makes, I think I just don't. We just exist in different worlds, right? He is a kind of influencer, very popular on Instagram. He's written a bunch of kind of hustle porn books. Become a key person of influence. Entrepreneur Revolution. Oversubscribed. How to get people lining up to do... I don't know what it says. To do business with you. Very much kind of like business guru kind of guy. 24 assets. Here we go. 24 assets. Create a digital, scalable, valuable, and fun business that will thrive in a fast-changing world. So with a kind of hint of the old. Let's not call it get rich quick. What should we call it? Get rich speedily. Looks like David Brent, says Sublink. And I think he was an odd choice for this conversation. To have someone who, Gary has a large following on social media, but also has an economics background, both as a trader and also as someone who has studied at LSE, studied at Oxford, I think. And Daniel just seems to be like a business guy who's good at talking about entrepreneurship and like kind of doing that kind of hustle porn thing, which makes him an interesting choice. And it means the debate's kind of a little bit odd because I don't agree with Gary on absolutely everything, but you do have a debate between someone who is broadly basing an argument in like around facts and data, and someone else whose entire argument is based kind of on vibes. In fact, I watched some of this debate and very quickly had to sort of Google things that Daniel Priestley had to say because they're all the... So he starts talking about economic freedom as this kind of quantifiable thing. And he was like, yeah, the UK used to be quite economically free, but now the number at which it's economically free has been going down. And I was like, this all sounds odd to me. I'm going to Google it. All Heritage Foundation. The concept of economic freedom as a like measurable thing is a product of the Heritage Foundation, which, if you're not aware of the Heritage Foundation is the organization which wrote Project 2025, Donald Trump's kind of program of policies. They also famously wrote Ronald Reagan's Mandate for Leadership, which was his kind of similar thing. So an odd guy who was quoting, for whom all of the sort of figures he quoted and stuff were all very much from very partial, libertarian at best think tanks and such. Mostly sort of where someone has made up a metric for something so that you can say... There's another bit where he talks about 75% of ultra-high net worth individuals are self-made. And if you actually go and look up how this measuring scheme works, you can get a... Oh no, what was it? 75% are over 8 out of 10 on the scale of self-made or something. And if you look it up, you can be out 8 out of 10 and still have had a considerable amount of money from your parents and be like very much not be self-made. The whole scale is designed so that guys like this can sort of chat shit, basically. And yet, it brought us into this strange world, right? Because you end up with a situation where suddenly these kind of hustle guys are getting in on political debate. Yesterday, Simon Squibb decided to get involved. Now, I don't know if some of you are aware or not of Simon Squibb. Simon Squibb is the "What's Your Dream" guy. So his thing is he's like a TikTok guy.
Browsing around.
What's your dream?
Being a DJ music producer.
Have you got any music we can see?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah? Can you come back with some decks and do some moves?
I can, yeah.
How long will it take you?
Possibly an hour.
Do it. I want to hear some of your music. Go. It's in a minute.
1:21.
It's 1:22. The guy's late. I can't believe people are late for their own dream. Hold on a minute. Is it?
He asks people what their dream is, and then he'll give this guy some money and be like, go and become a DJ.
Heat it back. Almost late. Almost late. Open up your laptop. Let's hear your music. Okay, guys. What do you think? Okay, you got skills, man. How much you charge to come and do a DJ set for someone?
I don't know.
You've got to figure out what the business model is to your dream. So I'll pay you 500 quid, come and do a set for me.
Serious?
Yeah.
Not
I hired
very
you, I'm
good.
your first customer.
It's not a great
Right?
fee.
Next time you see a book that can help you that costs 20 quid, fucking buy it. There you go. I saw you look at this book.
And this is kind of his whole thing. He then, he asks people what their dream are. They sort of tell him what their dream is, and then he's like, go and make it happen. And sometimes he's like, here's 400 quid or something. He's going to... This video is called He's Going to Make His Family Proud.
Yes. I don't have a dream. It's not a dream, but I really want to open a business.
Okay.
My mum and dad, they both work in retail, and I've seen my parents struggling. So I wish to open a corner shop for them.
Right.
But right now, I don't have the funds for it.
Why physical when these days you can sell a lot more online?
Yeah.
You can start selling pretty much tomorrow. You don't need to do the rent. You don't need to do the physical setup. Why not just try that?
I never had experience in that field, so I wouldn't know what to do.
I'm going to show you how to do it. It's not hard. Let's make this real. Open up a bank account with Tide and
Oh, sorry. You also have to understand, and we'll get to the... later on we're going to get to the point that also he always knows what company that he can tell you to go and give £5, £10, £20 a month to help you complete your dream, right? Which, as we'll get to in a second, undermines his entire argument. But let's
you get £50 back. But more importantly, it will start to make you believe you're going to do it. Because you can walk away from here now and just not do it.
Yeah.
Right, April, that business is launching. No excuses. Promise me.
100%.
Right, I'm gonna promote the shit out of you, but you have to follow through. Right, deal. Go on. What's your dream?
like people clearly watch, like, these videos are popular, right? They don't seem to be super popular on YouTube. They've kind of only got, that one's got 31,000 views, but like on TikTok he's really popular. This is why he's got, he just had a book out. I assume he must occasionally do follow-up, because of all of the ones that I've seen, he goes like, yeah, you go and achieve your dream, here's £200, and then you just never see them again. I assume if people are still watching, he must sometimes follow up.
Excuse me, do you have a dream? Do you have a dream?
Oh gosh, to open an orphanage.
Wow, okay, how can I help you make that happen?
I guess you could really start anywhere, right? I mean, everything takes money.
Well, why don't you start small? I'll sponsor one orphan that you want to help. Maybe just once a month help one orphan. It's a good start, right?
Oh yeah,
Should we do that?
I think so.
Yeah? My heart feels that you could really do this, but you just need stepping stones to make it happen.
I think it's really just the ground basics of opportunities. So
He's gonna
getting in
sponsor an
contact with the
orphan?
organization,
Yes.
and specifically in Ukraine is the focus.
If any of them want any help with like social media or marketing their dream, we could do it together and help that person. And
So I wasn't prepared for that. If any of these orphans want some help with their social media, Simon Squibb's here to help.
I'm also happy to give some money and support in any way I can. I'm trying to educate people about how to start businesses so they can be free financially.
Also, his whole thing is about starting a business. An orphanage is very much not a business. Also, I don't think you call them do you call them orphanages anymore? Like, what? What's going? I don't know what's going on here. That's very much not a. I suppose they're all going to have social media accounts, apparently. So
What they love, we do this together. Be a little demonstration for people to see how it's possible to have a purpose and make it happen, even if you personally don't have any money to do it. Excuse me. Do you have a dream?
And then like, do we think like, do you think there's any like follow up? Surely there has. Surely if people are subscribing to this guy and watching lots of videos, I can't see anything about potentially him having sponsored an orphanage. Okay, one more because I'm actually really enjoying these, and then I promise in a second we'll get to his political intervention. Was I too harsh? This will be good.
This isn't the song I thought I was getting. I was talking with this woman who had an amazing dream when suddenly I was rudely interrupted.
Do you have a dream?
I'm a music producer.
Oh, you're a music producer?
Singer-songwriter.
Who do you want to DM and get to help you?
KSI or like SX.
1 week later, Theo brought me his song, but I knew it needed some work, so I set him a challenge.
Challenge is to get it into the top 40.
Yeah.
We get it into the top 40, I'm going to give you 10 grand. Why is this so important to you?
I've always loved making music, and it would be so
That's not a challenge. That's an aspiration.
nice to have a job that I enjoy.
Why is life not allowing you just to naturally do it?
Sometimes I look down on.
We've got some really exciting news for you. KSI's producer SX, he got back to us.
With £10,000 and Theo's dream on the line.
SX and Theo have 3 hours to turn this song around to make his dream happen.
I don't love the idea that a key part of the dramatic tension of this TikTok, YouTube short thing is that the song isn't very good. That feels mean.
Some bits we can fix on this, you know. I just don't see exactly how it's gonna go. I always overthink.
When you know in yourself, say if you want to drop that now, then do it, man. Because there's no perfect time. Like, drop the music, bro. And we need to turn the vocals up. And the snare down a bit on the hook.
full of incredible production advice, like just make the vocals a bit louder.
Yeah, you can feel a big difference from
Yeah.
Sounds good.
The song was done, and finally it was time for me to hear it.
All right, I've heard there's a new song. Show me.
This isn't the song I thought I was getting.
It's crap.
Take your headphones. Fuck you, man. I'm out of here. Only joking. I fucking love it.
Now we've got to make it a number one.
We're gonna do this.
Let's make it a number one. Come on.
Like, all of the setups for these are very heartwarming, and I think there is something, like, I want to live in that world where having a kind of meeting with the mentor on the street in which, you know, Simon Squibb comes up to you, asks you what your dream is, and goes, you know, make it happen, man. Like, come on, like, the world's your oyster, like, shake things up, give it a go. Like, I want to live in that world. My worry is that we never see any of the follow-up, and, you know, I worry we don't happen to live in that world, right? Simon Squibb has come back with a political intervention, right? Emergency message, we are under attack. Brackets, my solution. Do not use the word solution when you're talking about politics. It's generally bad vibes to use the word solution. And this is partly because, you know, this conversation about wealth taxes managed to puncture the kind of business guru hustle culture space. And that is kind of, that's challenging, right? If you're a guy like this whose entire social media presence is all about, you know, the only thing standing between you and your dream is 500 quid and a bit of grit and determination. Maybe less the wealth tax itself, but more, you know, the context into which campaigners such as Gary are suggesting we need to look at how we tax the wealthiest in society is one in which increasingly one's chances of social mobility are low, one in which wages have stagnated for decades, one in which work doesn't really pay. And that is a really difficult world in which to have the message of go out there, here's 500 quid, just make it happen, you know? Step 1, turn the vocals up. Step 2, top 40 hit. Like, and I will say, you know, going back to these videos, you know, I wish I lived in this world. I don't think it would be a particularly bad thing if the UK had some system of, like, business grants for people with a, you know, whether it's a dream or whether it's an idea. And there are various systems of support out there. I would say too many of them rely on a kind of loan basis. But, like, I don't think the idea of helping to nurture people who have something that they're really passionate about and are skilled at and potentially could make both their lives better, but also the kind of community in which they live's world better, like, having a support for that, I think 100% behind. In fact, actually, sort of personal story, I guess. A few years ago, when I was looking at bringing on an editor, eventually became Georgia, like, I did a kind of little scheme thing where I, like, got some bit, which was sort of like an arm's length from the government, but sort of got a little bit of money, which helped with the fact that I had to get a bunch of new, like, insurances and had to, like, buy a laptop and stuff. Like, there was going to be some sort of, like, upfront costs there, but also got some business advice about, like, which, to be honest, was mostly just me going, how do I employ someone and not break the law or whatever? And that was really helpful, right? That made a huge amount of sense. Like, and whatever tiny bit of support I got from the government, but via a sort of third party, I'm sure they will have now got. I'm fairly sure would have probably got back now in tax, you know. So, like, and it made a real difference because I'm not I don't know, I'm not business headed, but, like, there's just, like, knowledge that I didn't have, I guess. So I'm not, like, again, like, so there is something that I think is really positive about this, and yet the overall message is that all of these things will succeed, and that is a little bit more questionable. It's particularly more questionable when, as did Daniel Priestley here, and as did Simon Squibb, the What's Your Dream guy, said in a video, sort of packaged it in a video today, once you begin to bundle it up in such a way that the problem in terms of inequality in society is that some people simply aren't entrepreneurial enough, that's the point at which it begins to get quite insidious, I would say. There's, like, this real idea of that you can kind of hustle your way out of it, and not only that individual people can hustle their way out of poverty, but that the problem with society is that some people aren't entrepreneurial enough, and that's kind of the great source of all inequality. So this video that Simon Squibb uploaded earlier today focuses largely on education.
Normally on this channel, I try to teach you business. But right now, in this present political climate, with all the problems in the world that we have, I feel like my positive idea that everyone can take control of their own life, build their own business, or work with someone to build their own business is under attack. Your life is being controlled. You are being controlled. You're being manipulated by algorithms, by politicians, by the left, by the right, all trying to get you to be on their side so that you are a battery for their economic gains. The present economic system, which was designed over 100 years ago by Carnegie and Henry Ford, which born the present day education system, was designed, in their own words, to make you go.
This is COD history. I will also say this is COD history. To describe the way in which education works and has worked has a lot in common with sort of Fordism as a managerial model. Henry Ford did not design the way our education systems work. Like, there is sort of the nugget of a good argument in there. He is not making that argument.
Go to the factory on a Monday to Friday, to work for someone else, to do what they want you to do. And it has existed in its present form for over 100 years, along with the present housing ownership system, which has caused a major economic splinter. It has meant governments have got into serious debt, so they can't help us, even if all the rich people pay more tax, which is a present, drive. Let's get the rich to pay for everything. You're just going to drive.
Your King of Cups saying bringing up Ford in the first minute with my solution title is not a good look.
Them out of your country and into the hands of countries that are friendly and tax-free and want business to thrive in those markets. So the other argument is, if governments can't actually do anything because they're in debt, so even if you pay tax, you give it to them, they can't clear the debt, they're inefficient, they're unable to help you. And they're polarized. They're trying to blame immigrants. They're trying to blame individuals.
To kind of summarize this video, because it's a very confused video. It sort of talks about a million different things. It doesn't really have a thread. The fact that he can't make a 26-minute video with like a coherent, focused argument doesn't lend a great deal of confidence to his book. But he sort of makes a bunch of different arguments throughout. He thinks like mortgages are bad. I'm not entirely but in a just kind of like vague, the bank. And I completely agree that, I don't know, the fact that people have to, I don't know, either pay rent, which kind of just disappears as money, or pay a huge amount of interest in order to have a mortgage to eventually own a home. Like, I broadly agree that there is something there, but he's just sort of like, the mortgages, the banks are the baddies. It's not rich people, it's banks, which doesn't entirely make a lot of sense. He does this like weird bit at some point where he does a little class diagram.
Working class population.
And he does talk.
It's still about 50% of the population.
He does talk about the fact that the rich have been getting a lot richer. It's interesting that there is acknowledgement here that inequality is a thing and that inequality is a problem. However, he ends effectively, after talking about a bunch of different, disparate, disconnected things that are just vaguely politics, he eventually says that the problem is education. Going back to this idea at the very beginning, he eventually says that the problem is education, and the challenge is that the education system educates us to be employees rather than educates us to be entrepreneurs and to be entrepreneurial, right? And in many ways, that has to be his argument, right? If your whole thing is selling a book, I mean, let's try and find, so we can find a little bit of a, is there any like reputable sort of reviews of this book so we can find out a little bit what it's actually about? So his whole thing is doing your dream. His whole thing is selling people a book about achieving your dream, and also he has what is effectively a forum for people who want to start businesses, and we'll come back to this in a second. So in many ways, he has to believe that education is the key. I mean, what a fantastic thumbnail. Like, it's very much like his argument is very much that arguing for a wealth tax is like some form of populism. Like, in many ways he has to argue these things, because his entire business model falls apart if we exist in a system whereby achieving your dream or whatever isn't possible. From all the things that I know about this guy, this seems like a conversation that he would avoid being a part of, right? His thing is not hard-hitting politics. It is cutesy, inspirational, 90-second snippets, which you go away from and go, oh yeah, maybe I could get more out of life. Maybe I could achieve my dream or whatever. And yet, what this podcast seems to have done is probably not even I don't think even introduced people to the idea that maybe the game is rigged a bit. But I was kind of tapped into this amongst this particular audience who otherwise might not come across some of this stuff. You know, this recognition that actually we've shifted to a system where, unfortunately, and I think this is a bad thing, work doesn't pay anymore. And also that entrepreneurialism doesn't pay in quite the same way as it maybe once did either, right? There's certainly a kind of freedom that one gets when one kind of is their own boss or whatever. The challenge is that the systems that have been built around that mean that a lot of people who are self-employed or who run small businesses find themselves in the position where, you know, with rent being so high, with all of the various ways in which large companies have worked out how to skim bits out of that, whatever their profit margin might be, it's certainly not the elevator to riches that it once was. Certainly not the kind of self-employed business where you're working really hard trying to scale something on a kind of normal level, right? Of course, if you design an app that becomes the best-selling app, that becomes a possibility. But that's like a 1 in a million thing. And in fact, the way that I think this is really clear is that, so this is a website called Help Bank, which is run by this Simon Squibb guy, and really fascinating kind of artifact of this kind of entrepreneur social media kind of thing, because what you'll begin to see is that, you know, a lot of the entries are for businesses which actually aren't someone following their dream. They're someone trying to make a pretty dodgy business. You know, the Junior Wealth Academy. This is someone trying to do an AI logo. This is the first thing that's come up. Someone who's trying to make an AI logo for something called the Junior Wealth Academy, which I assume is going to be teaching finance skills to youngsters, which like kind of sounds like it could be positive, but I do worry is just doing finance bro stuff but for kids. Maybe I'm assuming there, but you know, this logo does not. So I said there's a lot of just kind of hustle porn. Someone wants to be a TikToker, someone wants to be a full-time podcaster, someone selling websites, people asking really basic questions. What is the most effective way to attract clients to a new business? A good question to ask, but doesn't suggest that this is a place that is teeming with knowledge and people who are likely to achieve their dreams, right? and not through any fault of their own, but simply because of the fact that, you know, someone doing a podcast, someone who wants to be an actor, like, really brilliant that people want to do all of these things. The reality is that they're kind of unlikely to do so, right? And one of the page that really got me was this one, like my journey, okay? Because this kind of shows that even if you do have some success, actually the economic model that we have set up is one in which actually the biggest companies are the kind of platforms and the rentiers who are able to take more productive work, whether that is people who are earning salaries in an employed job, or whether that is people that are self-employed or whatever, and are able to kind of like skim off the top of that, right? This is a page called My Journey, in which Simon Squibb's website will tell you how to start your business. And the whole thing is just an advert for as a service companies, right? So, you know, you need to start your website so you can pay for Wix. You need to design a logo so you can use Visme, which I've never heard of. You might need some legal help, so Rocket Lawyer will step in. You need a bank account. What about Tide? Buy some tech products from Currys. Oh, look, why not get a business plan software from LivePlan? Why not hire in a gig worker for fuck all money from Fiverr? You know, you can't just place a job advert anymore. You have to put it on CV Library. And so you get to this point where you go, well, yeah, this is part of the, all affiliate links. And this will be, these are clearly like they have been put there as part of a sort of proper deal. And this to me kind of really shows the emptiness of this idea, right? And I want to be clear that my disagreement isn't with the idea that people who have something they're really passionate about and are skilled about and want to make that into a thing, like, I think it is entirely positive that, like, fuck it, you've got one life, give that a go, right? Take the skill and passion you have and try and make that go. I don't think, however, that it is a replicable solution to the world's ills that we just tell people who don't have very much money that they just need to become entrepreneurs, right? We can't logistically live in a world where everyone is an entrepreneur, right? We do need nurses, and we do need people to take the bins out, and we do need people to be the employees of the people who are these entrepreneurs, right? So one challenge is that, you know, while it might be great in some cases for people to kind of follow their passions, it's not a replicable systemic solution to inequality to just train people to be more entrepreneurial. And one of the reasons that is not the case is because we've built a system where most people who are, or a lot of people at least, who are entrepreneurs these days are effectively working for a boss by a different name, right? So I've made videos for, and in addition to that, that boss by a different name takes a huge cut of the economic benefit of whatever the thing is, right? So I've made videos for maybe like 7 or 8 years now. And I am very much someone who, in Simon Squibb's vision of the world, has gone, I'm going to try doing a thing that I feel like I'm sort of passionate about. I'm going to work really hard and try and make a success of that, right? And I would say I've worked reasonably hard. I'm sure I have off days. I certainly have days where I work less hard than others. But And it's been reasonably successful, right? I don't want to suggest that it's been, I'm not Mr. Beast. However, people consistently watch the videos that I make. I have one full-time employee. I have another that is works 2 days a week, who started very, very recently. Both myself and both people I work with, and in addition to any of the sort of people we bring in just to like design a thumbnail or kind of do a little more discrete tasks like that, all work very, very hard. Whatever the success of a video is, particularly whatever the financial success of a video is, YouTube gets to keep 45% of that ad revenue. Which I'm aware maybe sounds like a personal grievance, but I kind of want to use this as an example for something slightly broader, right? Is that despite the fact that sort of me and my team are putting in pretty much all, like 80% of the work to make that video exist and put it out into the world, right? We can say that YouTube does something, right? It manages the servers, it keeps YouTube as a platform which is useful to use, etc., and works properly, all of that kind of stuff. I don't think they do 45% of the work of making, of the value that you can attribute to each video, right? And yet, because they have a monopoly over online video of the kind that we make, they get to skim that off the top. I spotted Mark saying that corporations are against taxes, but they take all the tax from their creators. That's a really good point, right? So in the UK, Google pays 2% revenue tax or revenue levy as part of the digital services tax, but then its profits disappear to Ireland. So YouTube kind of takes its part and takes it out of the country to take it to a low tax jurisdiction. Whereas the bit that we get to keep, that also gets taxed, which is great and good. I'm sort of broadly in favour of corporation tax being higher. I think the fact that corporation tax is lower than income taxes is itself a bad thing. But so regardless of whether you work in a job or are self-employed or whatever, and I think there are huge benefits to being self-employed in terms of I feel very lucky that I get to be in charge of what I do. But we've built a system wherein wherein we have these platforms, and there are kind of equivalents in most sectors now, whether it's YouTube being a platform that takes a large chunk of revenue, or whether, if you are running a corner shop now, with rents going up and up and up, more and more of the money that you make selling products in your corner shop is just going on rent to keep the building. The problem isn't just that some of that money is getting siphoned off. The problem is that the money is getting siphoned off from people doing kind of the productive stuff of making the products or providing services, and it's being siphoned off by companies which are landlords in one way or another, right? YouTube is a kind of landlord in that it occupies the digital space of youtube.com, and it manages to hold on to the audience that are the kind of metaphorical passers-by. And so we also have a system wherein sort of unproductive activities are rewarded more than productive ones. It's really interesting. When I was watching this debate, it was really interesting thinking about, all of these guys, these three guys are all really, really wealthy, like very wealthy. At one point, Stephen Bartlett's talking about, his houses in other countries. Gary Stevenson's very well off from working in the city. And what you sort of can notice is that they're all extremely wealthy from doing things which, I'm sure they've worked hard to an extent. However, the services that they provide and the services that they have provided to gain them that wealth are all pretty low down on the list of things that we would consider to be socially useful, right? Someone who provides business advice, right? Advice to people who are themselves then gonna do something business related, right? Earning money from that is not, like, you are not doing the productive thing. The person who is doing the business is. Stephen Bartlett, his kind of history is like in marketing, social media marketing. The extent to which his initial success is all a bit debated, I think. He's mostly an influencer, right? And as someone who does exactly the same job, I would say that the social value provided that it's not non-existent maybe, but in comparison to inventing a vaccine for the common cold or something, it's not super high up, right? Gary Stevenson is a city trader. There are many arguments that financial services are useful in terms of, taking capital that someone has that they don't need right now from one place in the economy and making it available somewhere else in the economy. But the extent to which people who work in financial services are now rewarded for their task is clearly way above and beyond the social value that they provide in doing that. And part of the grievance that some of these kind of hustle guys seem to have, so, that Simon Squibb has, the way kind of he will frame it, he frames it in this video, he never says, I just want to pay less tax, which presumably is in there somewhere, right? He would quite like for there to not be higher taxes on the wealthy because by the sounds of it, he's pretty well off. Kind of one of the ideas that both he and, this guy, Daniel Priestley, have raised is kind of this idea that, if you tell people that the system is rigged and if they're poor now, they're going to be poor forever, that is in some way, like more than demoralizing, it's like trapping people in their place, right? This is something that Simon brings up in his video. He's kind of like, these people they're kind of making you into doomers almost. They're telling you, you can't achieve your dream. And I connect with that criticism to some extent. Like I understand where he's coming from in saying that. And yet that is factually true about the world around us, right? Some people might be able to follow their dream and become wealthy. The reality is that is not a replicable systemic solution to inequality. That is a thing that some people can do sometimes. And yet, that's not a world in which this kind of business inspiration porn can exist. Like, if too many people accept that, or even like become aware of that as a kind of phenomenon in society, then you can't sell your book, What's Your Dream, anymore. And so it's been really interesting the way in which it has dragged people who, I think Simon Squibb would rather probably keep his head down and begin and keep making entirely hollow videos in which he gives people 200 quid and is like, off you go, son, go and become a superstar DJ. And it's kind of breaking that world. I'm interested to see, as ever, whether this continues to be a thing and we get more finance gurus getting stuck into this conversation to talk about how, don't let them grind you down by telling you stats and data about how social mobility is flatlining and wages have stagnated and the economy's been taken over by a bunch of rentier platforms. Don't let them grind you down, you know, follow your dream. Or maybe the rest of them ignore it. We'll see. Thank you so much for watching this clip from my Monday night live show. If you would like to watch these clips ad and sponsor free, then you can do so over on my premium streaming service, Nebula, where if you're on the lookout for more news and politics updates, then you can watch WTF USA, a show put together by the team over at TLDR News, in which they give a British perspective on events that are happening over on the other side of the Atlantic. Of course, Nebula is also the place where you can watch my debut feature-length documentary Boomers, and my Nebula exclusive class, How to Research Like a PhD Student, which I show you how I take lots of research and turn it into hopefully fun, watchable videos that maybe you like sometimes. If you'd like to get access to all of that alongside a whole bunch more exclusive video goodness from your favorite creators, then you can get a little discount on signing up to Nebula at go.nebula.tv/Tom Nicholas. Using that link really does help to support my work, both on this channel and on the main channel. So if you would use that link, go.nebula.tv/Tom Nicholas, I would be very happy about that. Thanks so much for watching once again, and I'll see you in another clip soon.